Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com and today I'm here with Paul Cameron from Booktrack. Hi Paul.
Hi, Joanna.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. So why don't you start by telling us a bit about you and why you started Booktrack?
Sure. So my background was I was actually in the Air Force. I flew with the Air Force for 11 years, and then I was running a military electronics and software business. And my brother called me one day and he said, "You know what? I was on the ferry today in Hong Kong, and I got out my this is going back 8 years now. And he said I got out my I think it was iPod Generation One or one of the music players, maybe a Discman or Walkman." And I put on my headphones and I started reading my book. And I noticed that when a happy song happened to play with a happy part of the story or sad with sad, it was a much better experience. And wouldn't it be great if we could make that happen all the time for people? And that got us thinking about that commuter market where, millions of people all around the world jump on buses, trains, ferries, they plug in their headphones and they read a story while listening to their playlist or their radio or whatever it is, just to block out what's going on around them. And we always said it was, if just an alien came from outer space and looked at that behavior, they would go, why do you read something and then fight another sensor, that doesn't match up with at all with what you're reading? Whereas if you look at every other mainstream entertainment medium, synchronized sound is one of the main components. Reading is the only mainstream entertainment medium that doesn't have synchronized sound. So that was kind of our brief. And when we researched it, we found out that it wasn't such a new idea. A lot of people had talked about this. James Patterson recorded a CD, 100,000 copies with an orchestra, put it in the back of, it was a series which is still alive today called Maximum Ride. And no one's ever heard of it. And at the same time, Stephanie Myers was blogging about the songs she was listening to, and she wrote each chapter, and her fans were downloading those tunes and listening to them. So we knew there was something there. And the main reason there was two things which I guess we worked out why it hadn't taken off yet or even worked for anyone. One was no one had taken the next leap. Instead of just playing your favorite song while you read, what about ambience and sound effects and making it a movie style experience? No one had taken that leap. And the really hard thing about it was everyone reads at a different reading speed. So how do you manage to synchronize this movie style soundtrack to a different person's reading speed on each title? And these devices didn't exist either. We're going back. I mean, when we were first prototyping and patenting around this, Kindle didn't exist, so ebooks wasn't really available, and we can now carry a whole library around in our pocket. That wasn't possible 8 years ago. So it's a long answer to. I guess we fell into Booktrack because we saw an entertainment experience which we think could really help to bring reading back as a mainstream entertainment choice of many.
Wow, that's great, and you've now convinced me because I'm actually one of those people who I listen to if I listen to anything, it's Rain on repeat. I just listen to Rain. That, like you said, that ambient sound. But you're so right. Like a lot of people do that on the tube and stuff. And it's interesting. A friend of mine has a blog called the Undercover Soundtrack. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes, I have. Yes, I
Yeah,
have.
so Roz Morris, yeah, so she interviews authors about their songs. But so one of the questions I know people are already thinking is, where do you get the music then? Can I use my favourite songs on Booktrack?
Yeah, good question. So we redesigned our complete platform 2 years ago. We started 2 years ago and launched it a year ago. Um, And one of the things we realized, if this was going to work for both publishers and self-publishing authors, that we needed to make sure there was abundance of music, sound effects, ambient sound available for them to create that on their own stories, or find to get an audio professional to do that for them. So we've secured the rights to over 20,000 audio files, a combination of music, ambient sound, and sound effects. And anybody can come and use those free of charge. However, you can't go and take your favourite Michael Jackson tune and add that to your book track. In the same way, you wouldn't want somebody taking your story and bringing it into a platform like ours and then using that for their own purposes. So we're really careful around rights and copyright. So you've got to own the rights to either the text you bring into our platform or the audio you bring in. However, we have a huge amount of both text and audio available on our platform if you want to get involved, and that's constantly changing. Though we're always in talks with partners around opening up much larger audio libraries, including popular music. So that will come in the future.
That's really fantastic. And what about Creative Commons music?
Yep. So Creative Commons music does work with our platform, and again, it's just about working out the rights and where they sit and whether that makes sense with you, because Creative Commons is a bit of a minefield for people as well to navigate. There's different tiers within that as well, and I think the question is, if you're not sure, you can always just email us at support@booktrack.com and we can give you clarity, because we're constantly watching the music and text that's uploaded, and doing some analysis around that automatically as well. So if anything flags, we'll let you know.
Now, and then I know you have an education kind of side of it as well, don't you? And we have there's a lot of children's authors, a lot of people working in education listening. So can you just explain that too?
Yeah, so on our I guess our booktrack.com platform, I think we're approaching around 2 million readers on that platform at the moment. So there's definitely a lot of activity going on there, and authors are finding out it's a great way to reach a new audience that they otherwise can't reach. One of the things when we launched that platform 12 months ago is almost straight away a whole bunch of schools started using it around the world. And the reason is there's very, very few educational tools that can help bring engagement to both reading and writing. There are plenty of tools that will say, read this story and then answer these questions. But for a child, that's not really fun. One thing that we do is we bring the ability to add something to both writing and reading, and that is music. Now, you've got to remember, when you're a teenager or preteen, music drives your life. It's a massive part around what you do. So the engagement levels, teachers are using it in the classroom in ways like, if they're studying Shakespeare, they split up different verses or sections and get them to soundtrack it. If you're doing creative writing, they say, right, write a poem or a short story and then add a soundtrack. And we've seen this in classrooms, and the kids just really get into it because it brings this new dimension, and they start trying to out-cool each other, of course. And so they have this, so all of a sudden now the classrooms are wanting to do creative writing so they can add the soundtrack and bring this new experience. And it's a totally separate platform. It's called booktrackclassroom.com. When they publish, only their peers get to see their books. Only their classroom gets to see the books. The teacher has control of the students, so they create the accounts for them. We've got an easy way to do that. So it's very much segmented off. All the content's safe on there. And for any of your authors watching this here, if they had children's stories and they'd like to put them into that platform, then they can contact us about that. And it's very easy for us to transfer it from the main platform across to the classroom platform. But one of the interesting things we found out of that was both New York University and Auckland University did studies on Booktrack to find out, does it actually not only make a difference around engagement, as we discussed, but also what about comprehension and retention, and that both of the studies found that it had a massive impact on comprehension, retention, and engagement. The Auckland University study, which finished not long ago, that took 12 months. It involved hundreds of students. They empirically measured that as 17%. So you can read a book without a book track and you'll get a D maybe. If you read with a book track, you'll remember 17% more. So you'll go from a D to a C or a B to an A. And they were astounded by that. And they said the reason they were is there are a lot of reading programs out there that enable you to, over time, comprehend more or read faster. But they said there's nothing they've come across that can give that instant jump in comprehension, doing nothing other than through adding a synchronized soundtrack. So it's exciting.
That's so interesting. I've just actually been on a story conference this weekend with Robert McKee, he's a really big guy from America, and he talked about soundtracks on film and how the score is done, and basically how that underscores the emotional elements and that embeds the story. So that's what filmmakers have done for years, right? You're just taking it into the book. So I can completely understand that. Okay, so from a reader perspective, how do they find these book tracks? Like, is there an app, and and do they have to own the book to experience it?
Okay, yeah. So it's very easy to find. Anyone can go to booktrack.com, and there are I think around 10,000 titles available that people can read. All the titles are free at the moment. There is also an Android app and an iOS app, so on your iPhone or your iPad. So or you can use it through the web browser. So I think it works on all the web browsers except for Internet Explorer. So otherwise, you should be covered. And
nobody uses that.
Yeah, so it's really easy. So it's very easy to find. It's free to use and try. And in the next, I would say 3 months, maybe a bit sooner, we'll be launching monetization on our platform. So that gives authors the ability to add their own price on their titles and sell it through our platform as well. So that's exciting.
Yeah, and of course, I'm on there and I'm using it more for marketing. It's a kind of way to get people. You can just do a chapter, can't you? I've just done the first chapters of the books, and you can link that to a web page on your website or whatever. So right now, are authors mainly using it for marketing?
Yeah, I think there's one of the things that self-publishing authors really understand, and I remember speaking with Hugh Howey, and he said this is the thing is he said if you want to be a successful self-publishing author, you almost have to give everything away, and eventually that will come back to you in the form of sales. What we're finding is a lot of authors come to our platform, they like the concept, they maybe find it a bit daunting, the idea of doing their whole book, even though, as I say, to do your whole book might take you a week worth of effort, even though you've taken maybe a year or 2 years to write your story. An extra week of effort sounds a bit daunting, and it's a new thing. So what we always suggest is just do a chapter or a couple of chapters and put it up there. And then what we find is people do that, and then it's a great new way to promote your story, because a lot of authors are always thinking of innovative ways to get people interested in their story. So instead of saying, buy my book, they can now say, wow, I just added a soundtrack to my story. It's really cool. Come check it out over here, and put a link on it. And that link will automatically take them straight to your book. It doesn't land them on some landing page. It actually lands them straight into the Booktrack experience, your story with a soundtrack. And so yes, it's a great marketing tool to get people interested in your story. And we also finding what authors do, then they add another chapter and another chapter and another chapter. And we've set up our platform for that serialized way of writing as well. Or in our case, it may not be the writing, it might be the serialized soundtracking, because the story's already written.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that is anyone who's read your story then gets a notification saying, hey, Joanne's just published another chapter of her book, this. And so then people are coming back to your story continually to get updated as they go as well. So there's different aspects around that. And we've got some really, I would say, exciting technologies coming soon. One of them is going to enable you to embed your Booktrack title in your own website in the same way you can embed a YouTube trailer. Exactly, same way you embed a YouTube video. So we're going to give you the ability to embed your Booktrack in your own website as well. So it's another marketing tool. We feel like what we do is provide a differentiating piece of marketing for authors. So so it's definitely a good way to get involved.
Yeah, and it's actually quite fun as well, I have to say. I gave it a go. I wasn't very good at it, and your team kindly helped me, and you've got a lot of videos and stuff to help people. But it is actually really fun. You kind of, like you highlight a bit, don't you? And it might say footsteps in a church, and you highlight it, and then you can look up a sound effect for that, that's a blunt instrument, what I was doing. But your guys have all kinds of nuance, don't they? So I wondered if you could give any kind of top tips for people who want to give this a go, or mistakes you've seen, or anything kind of best practices.
Sure. So yeah, first of all, it's an incredibly easy tool to use. It's all done through the browser. You don't have to download software. So there's no real barriers. It's very easy to use. It's designed so that a 10-year-old can use it. Okay, and we tested it on 10-year-olds to make sure.
And a 40-year-old.
Yeah, well, that's true. So I think the whole idea is that it's what might sound daunting at first. We took all the complexity out of our original tool when we first launched the business 4 years ago, and we've made it very easy for anybody to use. So what might sound or seem a bit daunting, it's not. There's only 3 steps. You add your text. It's as simple as cutting and pasting it in or writing it in. You then, to add your sound, you're dead right, you just highlight the text. And this, it's not really all about sound effects. I think that's the first tip. All you do is you highlight your text, and this could go from a few lines or a few words right through your whole chapter of your book. And then what comes up is a menu that enables you to choose between, to basically filter the audio libraries. You can choose from music, ambient sound, or sound effects. And inside of those, there are different categories. So for music, you can search via genre of your story. So you might say it's an adventure story. Then you can search via emotion. So you're looking for a sad scene, and then you can search for type of music. So maybe it's rock and roll or orchestral, and then a whole bunch of audio choices come up, which you can then preview before you select. And once it's in your work, it's very easy to drag around. So the experience is easy, and the final step is just publishing it. You just add your metadata and your cover and publish it. There's even a cover creation tool if you need it. But the number one tips are, is I'd almost say stay clear of the sound effects. Like that's the last thing you do. I really concentrate on the music and the ambient sound. It's very much like the best example, you brought it up a few times, is a movie soundtrack. We like to say, movies didn't have sound in 1928, and now we can't imagine movies without sound. And if you take the sound away from a movie, especially the music, all of the emotion dies from the scene. In the love movies, it's what makes you cry. In the scary movies, it's what makes you jump. It's the music, right? And so what we should really suggest is do that first, and then listen to the effect, read your own story, and then add just sparse sound effects, just for emphasis. You don't have to put a sound effect on every action word because it gets too much. That's what kids love to do.
Yeah.
But just at poignant moments, it actually does make a big difference. But if you overuse it, then it can become distracting. So it's really about setting the right mood through music, sing through ambience, and really complementing your work as a writer. I think that's really the key bit. The main thing I would say mostly is just give it a try. It sounds a bit scary, but it is very easy to use. We've got a very good support team. If you have any problems, email at support@booktrack.com. They'll definitely help you out.
Yeah, and I must say, I found it really fun, and I'm not even really a music-y person, so I think people listening who have a better idea of music than me will actually love it, will really get into it. And it's all free, as you said, isn't it?
Exactly, free to use, free and fun to use. I mean, you said earlier you found it fun. A lot of authors make comments like, "Oh, I just gave it a go," and the next thing I know, 5 hours had passed, and I actually discovered new things about my story, and I kind of fell in love with this book that I wrote quite a long time ago in a whole new way. And so yeah, I think it's a fun tool for authors, and I think people really enjoy using it. So and that's what we set out to try and do.
And it sounds. I mean, I did have a question around the monetization, but it sounds like that's coming because obviously, people will want to be able to click to buy or whatever in order to get to that point. But with marketing, this is one of the problems for self-published authors in particular. We do try everything, and we do, but there are the things we keep doing, the things that actually engage readers and sell books. So I'm really glad to hear you're going to kind of move into that realm. So that will be in 2015, I guess.
Yeah, and so that's exactly right. So you can actually book track your whole story, and then you could sell it. Also, a short story, or whatever you've got sitting in your bottom drawer, or maybe on your bestseller list on Amazon or iBooks, wherever it is. But one of the other key things probably worth mentioning is when it comes to marketing your story or using Booktrack as a marketing tool, you can do your whole story or part of a story, and you can link to where you can buy that as well. So we have external links where we don't mind if you list all the places where you can buy your book, where your own blog is, your own website, whatever that is. We kind of feel like we're a new reading experience that sits alongside the same way you might have a hardcover, a soft cover. Not everyone has a hardcover, but an ebook, and then an audiobook, and then there's a Booktrack version. So we don't mind helping to cross-sell your work into other areas. So you might come and decide to put up a couple of chapters of your story, and then link to where people can go buy the complete story, and we really support that. So it's definitely, when it comes to monetization, we believe Booktrack serves two roles. One is people can buy your book with a soundtrack on our platform, but they can also discover it there and go buy it on other people's platforms, and we're quite okay with that too.
Okay, so you're actually aiming to be like an Audible.com for Booktrack books.
Yeah, I think I was just off another call with somebody, and I said the best way to think about us, I think, is an Audible is what they do. In fact, I was speaking with them recently. Is exactly that. The way even when you sell your book now on Kindle or Amazon, if there's an audiobook available, the next thing it says is goes, hey, now that you've bought the ebook, do you want to buy the audiobook at this discounted rate? And we feel we fit in that same category. You've just bought the ebook. Would you like the soundtrack with that for another $2 or $3? And that's also how most of the ebook distributors and publishers think about what we're doing. We're an enhancement to the reading experience. We are the only enhancement delivered to you while you read. Every other enhancement stops your reading. And we're all about your story. Your story as the author, about getting people into your story quicker and keeping them there longer. But it is about your words and the story that you're building up. We just bring another dimension to that to try and, perhaps bring a new reader to your story, or perhaps your current readers, give them a new experience around your writing that they haven't seen before. So it's very complimentary.
Wow, Wow, it's very exciting. I'm very excited about this, Paul. I think it sounds fantastic. I would urge people to come and try it out. And where can they come and try it out online?
Sure. Yeah, very, very simply, go to booktrack.com, and you can find us in the iOS or Android app stores as well. But go to booktrack.com. It's free to use. It's fun to try. And we love feedback. So please email us at info@booktrack.com, and we'd love to find out, any of your feedback or any problems you're having. And thanks a lot for having me, Joe. And I look forward to seeing you soon in New Zealand.